Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs, and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the pleasure to talk to Jeannie Dougherty. Hello, Jeannie. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Erwin and Steve.
Yeah, and Steve, welcome as well, of course. So, Jeannie, we could try to introduce yourself, but you know yourself much better than we do. So who's Jeannie? How did she come in coaching? What does she do in coaching and in business?
Okay. You
Question
insist.
mark.
Well, my name is Jeannie Dougherty. Yeah, my name is Jeannie Dougherty, and my clients actually call me a money whisperer because I can tell where your money is blocked and how to fix it. And that comes not only to your personal relationships. I work with couples as well as, if you're running a business. And many of us are small business entrepreneurs. Certainly there is big business, but we have a money brain. Now, let me just clarify that if I said, "Oh, your money brain," and you went to your doctor, they would look at you like you have, they need to send you to a psychiatrist. Your entire brain technically works with money. But when I talk about emotional behavioral rewiring, which is what I do, I talk about the left side and the right side. And so that's what I really focus a lot of my work on, and helping people to move past shame and doubt and confusion, and how to make a better financial decision, how to communicate about money. We're all over the map when we talk about money, particularly as business owners. It's not even about what is your price. It's like, do you even know how to have a conversation about who you are, what you do, and how you work? Real basic stuff, nothing too complex. But it can be a challenge. And if you don't know, say like, I didn't really understand your question. Like I had a question the other day from a business attorney. I was like, I'm not really sure what you're asking me. I go, oh, I get you. Now I understand. So, be transparent, be authentic. You don't have to know it all. Nobody does. And if they do, they're lying. Hello, easy life. So I didn't actually get started in money coaching. That was not the plan. I'm actually trained as a mental health and substance abuse counselor, and I still am. I still have a small private practice here in Maryland, which is where I'm at. And funny darn thing is, both my parents got very sick with Alzheimer's. It actually started when I was 17. My dad got sick first, and my dad was older, but he wasn't like old because he died at 68. He wasn't that old. And my mother, she was dead by the time she was 74, still not an ancient person, who had Alzheimer's. And we had no previous family history. There was no warning. It just happened. They were on medication to stop it, to slow it down. It never worked. It was like sort of like the train is going to crash and, here's your last words. You better say something. So I became more intentional, I would say, watching my parents lose it. That's the best way I can describe it, because when they can't remember who you are, they don't know who they are. Like, I'll never forget, I had a conversation with my mother. I go, "Well, Mom, you had 4 kids." And she goes, "I had 4 children. When did this happen?" And I was like, "Well, it was a while ago. It's fine now. Let's move on." Because I understood that wasn't her, that was the disease talking. My mother loved me, and she did, I think, as well as she could, but she wasn't, she wasn't well at that point. So it's okay that she didn't remember that she had 4 children. So fast forward, my mother got sick later, and then she passed away. And when she finally passed away, we finally confirmed upon her death that another family member had liquidated her entire estate. It was about $1 million US, and they had taken all of it, and they had delayed diagnosis. It was a horrible, horrible situation. Some of us as family members are not speaking still, and it's been a while since she passed away, and I'm okay with that. I like happiness. I like boundaries, so I'm good with that. We don't have respect. We don't need to keep going. But it really changed me because it really scared me. I didn't know who to trust. I mean, like, I was raised with some of these people or told to trust them. And then next thing I know, I'm like, what? So money is not the root of all evil. I'm paraphrasing the Bible, but it does certainly empower people to make choices that they shouldn't make. And they'll do it in ways that they don't care if it hurts another person. So after we found out about my mother, we went to court, we lost, we were in litigation for 2 years, and nothing good came from that. And I don't know a lot of people who are like, let me tell you about how I lost a bad case, or let me tell you about a no-win case, a no-win situation, and how you can kind of come through that and still make a life that's going to make you happy. And that's where I think coaching kind of just showed up in my life. But
Hmm.
it showed up in the most unusual and remarkable way. I was taking dance classes because I couldn't take the lies anymore. There were still more lies through the litigation and all kinds of stuff. And I was having conversations with my attorney. I was not happy. So when I went to dance classes, I finally felt free. And then I walked in one day and there was this flyer on the wall, like it was like 2 years later. And it was about dance and money. And I can't remember the title, but I said, oh, I should go. And it was for 4 days. This is all pre-pandemic. And I went and I met my very first emotional behavioral money coach, which is what I do now. And I was like, wow, this makes so much sense in my family. Now I can see why this happened in my family, why this happens in other families, because money equals different things. It's not always love. Many times it's about power. Many times it's about revenge. Many times it's about my needs over yours. So when you think about us as human beings and how complicated we are when we're just in our personal lives, I haven't even talked about business. It gets really screwy how we, put ourselves in unusual or difficult situations with the wrong clients, the wrong customers, undercharging, or trying very hard to make a business work, but you're not able to connect with your audience because you just don't know who you're really supposed to talk to. I mean, I've run into more entrepreneurs that go, well, I think I should do this. And I said, before you spend money on thinking, maybe, talk to 5 people and see if you can coach them.
Yeah.
And, even for 30 minutes and see what they can give back to you. And if it's just a nice conversation, then maybe you need to really have a mentor and talk to you about how you can actually, penetrate a conversation, not in a mean and hurtful way, but in a way that gives value and that helps people to think and provide something that, they never thought of or they didn't see. And that's why I love money coaching so much because the world, is revolving and moving in all different directions, and there's competing interests with so many. Just talking about countries. I haven't even talked about individuals, and yet the money's there. It's just how we use it and how we think about it, how we feel about it. Because we could feed everyone on this planet tenfold, right? We could do it, but we don't. Money's
So
part of that conversation.
that's a really interesting story. And it's one word that pops up for me is, and certainly the listeners will have that word, is the money. So how would you define money? And certainly when you talk about that emotional part behind money, so how would you define money?
So, money to me is just an energy and a story.
Hmm.
So money is something that it's like a tool we're supposed to know how to use, and we're given multiple opportunities throughout our lifetime to do that, but we don't always do it so well. The biggest thing that I think about money is money inside of you or is it outside of you? Because when it's inside of you, it's a lot easier to fix. When it's outside of you, you're struggling like crazy.
Interesting.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
About how it being inside. So one of the biggest things that happens with entrepreneurs and even couples and families is they have to figure out how to make money, right? And if you have a job, that's a good thing. And if it's paying your bills, great. If you're behind on retirement, not so good, right? You got debt, not so good. Um, if it's an issue of only one person makes all the financial decisions, but there's needs everywhere, maybe not so good, right? It's outside of you. It's always outside of you. But if you were raised maybe differently, that you have the power to create money, whether it's at a job, whether you own a business, whether you have a side hustle, whether you just think about money and you're like, oh, I would really like, I could use an extra $50 this week. Man, I'd love it, and you're not even maybe getting heavy about it. You're like, just, I would love to have an extra $50. That would be awesome. Then money may appear, and maybe the best ways possible. And then you're gonna be like, this was so much fun. The money probably was more inside of you than outside. And that is one of the hardest things I think that we have to understand about money is that if we live in duality, it's outside of us, it's going to be an uphill battle our entire lives. But if you believe that money is your right and you deserve it, which is a big problem for a lot of people, do they deserve their money? then you can actually do what you want to do with your money instead of always being like, well, maybe next year, or maybe I'm not so good at this, or I don't know how this person made all this money. I don't know either. Maybe go ask them.
And when you talk about external, what do you mean? That's what I'm trying to understand.
So the external is the belief. The external is the thing that it's like, oh, I want, it could be a better house, a car. It could be all these things that we want on the outside. I want more clients. I want higher paying clients. And that's out here. It's not like, I think I'm ready to get a new house. Or, oh, geez, life happened. I got a flood in my place and the landlord's going to kick me out. I'm going to get a new place. Is this a place of total frustration? And like, I don't know if I have the money and I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. Or the money's on the inside, meaning I believe that I have the power to take my finances and move them in a direction that's going to benefit me instead of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I feel like that is a huge, huge thing because there are people who are very wealthy and money's on the inside for them. That's usually the edge that they have, not in every case, but they believe that they deserve it. They can make it. They know who to call. They know what to do. So money isn't a problem and money isn't a barrier because they know what to do. They have it. It's on the inside.
The distinction I hear is one perspective sounds empowered.
Yes.
It's a silly metaphor, but in my head, it's like, we live in a forest. If we're hungry, we can go out and find the thing. The things are there. We just have to access it sometimes to get up and go and pick it off the tree.
Yeah.
But it's already there, as opposed to almost water in the desert where I haven't got it. It either rains or it doesn't. I'm kind of a victim of circumstance. Where I am determines its availability. And the helplessness and often maybe it's personal, but avoidance that comes with, no, the circumstances, here's what I've got. I'm going to live within what I've got, but I can feel a trappedness with that metaphor as opposed to, well, I have choice with the forest.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So how can you
go ahead.
So how can people train themselves to be more internal than external?
So it's usually some type of financial crisis or medical crisis that usually wakes people up. Sometimes it's environmental, like they lost their home due to a horrible hurricane, then they were, something like that. But it's usually something that forces them to get out of that duality. And they have the choice to go, oh, you're right. I need to be more responsible. I need to ask more. I need to tell people what's going on. Because that's the other illusion with a lot of money problems. People don't talk about it. You don't know. I don't know. And then it becomes a bigger problem. So that's one piece of it, like how do you get out of it is to be like, well, I could wait till a crisis that the universe is going to, so to speak, make me look at this. Or I could realize like, hey, I'm not happy with my money. I just want to be happier with it. I want to be happier with what I've got. I want to be happier with what I want to do with it. That's different. That's such a different feeling and it's such a different experience. And I find the people who often want the money coaching are trying to be happier with what they have because they're miserable. And it's not even about being like super rich. They like have plenty of money. They're okay. They're good to go, but they're miserable.
And why is that?
Because they're taught, again, that money is on the outside. You better work harder to do this. But then on the inside, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure how I can do better. I'm not sure if I made the right decision. I better hide from my own spouse the fact that I have another credit card because I don't know what else to do with all these bills. And, we didn't have money for this. So I got a credit card. So we could put that. I've been thinking about spending it, trying to spend it down, but I don't know what to do with that. I've seen it all, it feels like, and it's like, well, what are the priorities of the family? What are your priorities? What is it that you want to do? And they're like, oh, I didn't realize I could do that. Or I don't realize that I keep not telling somebody who's in front of me what's really going on with the money. So then that becomes another issue.
You mentioned trust before, certainly in your journey, and I see a lot of issues, questions, topics around trust and money. both in relationships with business partners, with, home families, heck, even with so-called financial advisors, where there's a marketplace premise where we trust an advisor to give us like advice that should serve us and grow the money and yet doesn't. Like, how do we talk about something when there's so many issues with trust around it?
So I'm glad you mentioned that because one of the things that I've noticed is that some people might have a financial advisor. I'm about 50-50 with my clients. Some have it and some don't. For those who don't, I often make a recommendation for them with somebody that's going to actually match their personality type as well as their experiences. So there's some type of connection there. But for those who do, I'm always amazed how often they lie to their advisor. They don't tell their advisor. So they might have, everything's going towards, again, the retirement piece or, the investments, but they won't tell the, advisor that they're struggling with credit card debt. They won't tell, the advisor that they've got student loans or something like that they've got to pay off, or there's just something else they need to pay off and they don't want to tell them. So what they do is they have these really painful phone calls of like, we need to sell blah, blah, blah. And the advisor will go, okay, we can do that. Sure. But I would like to have a meeting with you maybe later this quarter so we can figure out what are your goals, because that's going to put you behind, right? Very normal stuff, because really financial advising, I hate to break it to you, but it's based a lot of times on percentages. Not classy information. Sorry, guys, but it's true. So it's like you might have to work harder, or if you're exhausted by the age of 40 and you don't want to work anymore, then they're going to be like, well, you'll have $200 right now in your retirement. That's what you get per month. And they're like, what? And it's like, yeah, you need to get those percentages higher so that you will have more in the long run. And people don't always like to hear that either. So when it comes down to trust, I talk to certain financial advisors, and I've been very lucky. I've met most of the people. I'd say well over 90% of them are good. And then there's that 10% that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to follow you, but I will never refer to you because I want to make sure I remember who this person is. That's why, I'm like, I'm on it. Yeah.
I love it.
And
Actually, so as you're speaking, I'm reflecting on how I framed the question, and I can see a little of that sort of dependence, helplessness, sort of externalized mindset in some of the language that I chose to use, particularly from a place of trust, where often trust is given to the other. I mean, often we'll go to an advisor. I mean, we teach this in coaching. It's, hey, here's the client, here's the coach. We're both human. We're on the same level. Often with professional relationships, we give all the power to one party and we hold ourselves as helpless. And in the language of, going to a financial advisor because they have all of the answers, we've actually disempowered ourselves, even in the framing of that. And I can see that in how I asked the question.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, again, this is the duality piece. Money is a tool on this planet. You either accept it on the inside, or it's always going to be something way out there. And if it's out there and you don't know enough about it, or you've been studying or obsessing like crazy about it, like that's the other thing. Like we don't talk enough about people who are going mad about crypto and, they want to, NFTs and all this other stuff, or like, I'm going to figure this out. You can figure out an algorithm. It's not that hard. It's usually buy low, sell high. It's not that hard. But it's all driven by our emotions. And that's the thing that we're most blind to. We walk around with major blind spots when it comes to our money and how we see it and how, I want to be like that really awesome person I see on YouTube that's like lives in Miami and, and is an awesome influencer, and, just works for 2 to 3 hours a day. And the money just comes to them. And I'm like, what they're not telling you is that it's their parents' business. And, that place they rented for like a day. And, like they're not telling you the full story. And you have to ask yourself, why do you need to believe a myth that's out there instead of what's going on in here?
The emotion around money catches my attention because I can feel it to be really true. I've seen it with a lot of my clients. I mean, we know that emotion drives behavior. We know that we use logic to justify emotional decisions.
Yes.
And yet, certainly in business, money is often seen as the one truth because it is unequivocal. You look at the P&L, you look at your balance sheet, it's the numbers, the sales targets tell us it's all about the numbers. And so there is this, I guess, dichotomy around numbers, money being the numbers and therefore being tangible. And yet we've got all these emotional layerings of decisions that are influenced. How do you see that causing problems, and what do we do with that?
So one of the questions I kind of like to ask people is, hey, if you were given, and I'm just going to make this a simple question because sometimes the clients like more complex, but if you were given $1 million right now, what would you do with it? And if I hear that all I'm going to do is pay off debt and then I'm going to give some money to my church, but I'm not going to actually invest in myself, that's right there tells me that this money is external. If you tell me you're like, I'm going to go on vacation for 6 weeks and then figure out my life, I'd be like, well, that's somebody who probably needs a good rest or thinks they need a good rest. So they might be kind of in the middle. And then there's other people who are like, well, I'm gonna obviously get some debts paid down. That's first, anything that's hemorrhaging or bleeding, so to speak. But what I'm really gonna do is I'm gonna start a business or I'm gonna open another business. But this time I'm going to do it differently. I'm not going to try to do it all by myself. I'm going to try to do something, different. Maybe I'll do a collaboration or I will contact a charity. I will do something different with the money. And then it's like, oh, now you're thinking about the inside, which is that, now money's not the object. What can you do with it? What do you want to do with it? And then it becomes a whole different conversation because it's always fascinating to me. Like, well, what would you do? I mean, like some people are like, I don't even know if I could have that. Money's outside. Money's not inside.
So what I see that it came clear to me, I think. So when you talk about external, money becomes the goal, and internal, it's more like the tool. What can I do with it? Is that
Yes,
right?
that's a really nice way of putting it. Money's this external thing, or money is a tool, which is on the inside, which is what you asked me again. What is money? I go, well, yeah, it's like this energy thing, meaning we think about it, we have emotions about it. So it does generate an energy, but it's really just a tool.
Hmm. And if you talk about emotion, and I want to shift a little bit of conversation, and certainly people, and certainly a lot of coaches have this, is to ask for money when they talk with a potential client.
Yeah.
That's a big charge. That is for a lot of people, that's like a barrier.
Yeah.
So what are your insights around that?
So one of the things that we don't do, I would say there's three things off the top of my head. So first of all, we're not always sure about our pricing. Okay. You don't know until you make an offer, right? And the offer part is often the scariest. And so, what I often encourage is that you practice, whether it's on your phone or on your computer or just in front of a mirror, practice making the offer and watch your face. That's why recording is helpful. And why? Is because if you make a face like that or you go, then you're signaling to the buyer, I'm scared, which does not inspire confidence. Or if you can't stop talking, that still doesn't inspire confidence because you're not going to listen. One of the hardest things is to make an offer and say, hey, if you'd like to come work with me, I'll make this easy. This will be $100. Don't speak after that. Just be quiet. See what they have to say. That's hard. We don't talk about how hard that is, but that's hard. I already said record, watch yourself, but then, be quiet after you make the offer. And then, number three, you have to be ready for the no. And I don't mean like gripping onto your chair and like, oh, it's going to be a no. You just have to expect them to be like, oh, I don't know, or I'm not sure. And then, hopefully, what your service or product is that you can go back and explain it. Or explain what it is that you're trying to help them with, but you can't control people. In my experiences, the people who really want to sign up are the people who are like, I need your help because you can answer questions I cannot answer. I've tried on my own. So I have met people who will tell me, I have Googled everything. I've gone to ChatGPT. Oh, surprise, no help. And I don't know what else to do. And I'm like, yeah, you have to talk to a human. That's why we're talking. Now, some people are, and we don't talk about this enough as coaches, but it's true. Some people are just coach shopping. They are just looking for one tip out of you, one more tip out of this person, one more tip out of that person. And then they'll put together like this amazing framework that they never paid for, And my experiences with people like that, they don't go very far They just don't, because they're not invested enough. And we have to pay attention to that, I think, as coaches, is who do you really want to work with? Because if you've got people who are just gonna, as we say here in America, kick the can down the street, that's fine. That's what free offers are for, or low offers or low money offers are for. And I've still seen people who want to hustle, like a $9 fee. And I'm like, wow, I would adjust your marketing so that you stop having these conversations. Because that wastes your time. And that's something we don't talk about enough, is that if we don't protect our own time, we're going to get weighed down with the wrong people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's one of those, it's almost funny to watch from the outside, but it's not, because it's really sad, because it's those wrong clients that we work with that really kick us in our confidence. And then we as coaches will often own and define our goodness based on our misfit with these poor clients that we've said yes to. And it's the misalignment that we've said yes to that causes the friction, not our competence, our quality, or the value that we can actually bring. But it's those wrong clients that cost us on the bottom line, and it costs that passion as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some ways that's both the money, but also the emotion. Like there's other outcomes that happen from saying no to the wrong things, or saying yes to the wrong things.
And I think that's honestly just life experience. I've met so many people who want to become coaches or become coaches, but they've never been coached, or they haven't been coached more than 3 months. So they don't know enough about what is it like to maybe coach somebody through a hard time, because they don't have the personal experience, or they don't know how to coach somebody who was actually doing quite well, and they just need certain, if you will, techniques. Like some people think coaching is just questions, and I always cringe when I hear that, because I'm like, this is somebody who likes to walk in the room and drop grenades and wants to walk out, meaning they don't have enough skill or awareness to be like, when you ask questions and they cause harm, you're the one who's doing that. And I don't like that. And I've seen people do that. And I'm just like, I realize you're making this an aggressive sales call, but at what price?
Talking about emotions and the 3 tips you given, I think it is a 4th tip.
Okay.
And that's your vibration, how you see money will attract the same level of
Yeah.
people. I think when you talk about internal and external, if you go to a call and you do a chemistry call, or you go a sales call, and you're looking at that external goal, I need to get that deal to get the money for it.
Mm-hmm.
You're sending out that energy. Well, and whilst when you do it, like you say, internal, it's a tool, that vibration is different. So that connection, and now at the same time, you're probably not going to attract those, as you, Steve, say, those bad clients, because that's what I sense. But you can say if I'm wrong or not. Jeannie, Steve, whoever.
I know. Oh, Steve, can you hear him? Did you hear what he said? He asked you a question, so I didn't know.
Well, it was one of those non-directed questions, and so I got lost in listening, as did you.
It's our fault, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
It's on us. But I think that's it. I mean, I think I heard a while back that leaders are the emotional thermostat of the team, and as coaches, we're the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people come to us for direction, and as coaches, it's not necessarily us pointing the direction, but holding the direction, the way that we're being, our energy. And as you said, if we're like, oh, $100, our energy sends a message. I'll use the same narrative, both with coaches and leaders, but if we won't follow ourselves, why would someone else?
Well said. Well said.
If we're creating fear in the space, people will respond with fear. And as you said, I mean, I'm sort of taking a different direction here, but I was at a conference recently, and there was a group of master coaches. We all came together to have different discussions. And one of the topics that someone put forward, which I thought was really interesting, and I haven't really stopped thinking about it since, was a premise that all coaching is financial coaching.
Yeah, I mean that's true. All problems are all money problems are personal problems.
And it got me thinking. It's like, well, the the emotion, the money, how we show up, everything that gets impacted by it. If we as coaches aren't doing this work, what impact does that have on our work with our clients?
Yeah.
And because we're recording live, I've got a doorbell that I've got to duck off to. So apologies for being real. Keep talking. I'll catch up in just a minute. I'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah, money is always such an interesting topic, and people feel different about it, and certainly in relationships. So how? I don't know if you work with those people in relationships, so that
Yes,
people
couples.
feel differently about money, and how do you deal with that, and what's the best outcome to get?
Oh, well, there's different kinds of people, obviously, in
Yeah.
relationships. So, but I usually try to keep it to the behavior. So we don't have a whole story about what's wrong with, this person and what's right with me. That's another big problem in relationships. I'm not the problem. Fix so and so, please. Um, but I talk about the difference between saving and spending. Why? Is because that's about your values. All budgets, all spending plans are completely about your values. So if you are younger, you may have a really high takeout, you know, thing that's on your budget, like, compared to maybe a family of four who are like, nope, we have to eat at home. That is the most affordable for us. So, like, that's an example of like, where's the value? Now, if you don't cook, you might be like, nope, we're eating out. And that's fine. That again, where's the value? So, what I find is that when we add the value then to need and want, it gets really dicey. So if you have a need to want to retire, say before 70, which is, if you've got good health, it should work, right? But if you want to work past the age of 70, that can be a triggering thing for your spouse because they might say, like, literally, I don't want to be here. I want to be on a beach, or we said we'd be doing missionary work, in Africa. I mean, I could pick up so many different scenarios here. And if you don't know how to have that conversation, then it becomes like, well, we can't do this. Because here in the US, I wouldn't be surprised in Europe, but money is often the number one or two reason, depending on the study, that people divorce. And so I work with people who are not wanting to get divorced. So it's because, when you've made up your mind, we're done, I'm out of here. That's a different, energy, and it's a different type of client. But when you're like, I'm just trying to figure out how we can work together and make sure that whether it's saving for college, or if it's, sending your kids abroad, if it's, making sure that all healthcare is going to be taken care of because you have a child that has just a long-term health issue. Maybe that's the big value. And, the husband's like, but I want to make sure that I have money to go play golf whenever I want. That's an important value. And I'm not going to diminish it and say, like, oh, please. No, I mean, it's just a question of how does the budget work? Because if the mother, for instance, big concern is let's make sure that the absolute necessities are handled. And then dad needs to go play golf because he needs a break. That's great. But you never know. In 3 months down the road, he might send her to a spa, right? Because he knows that she's stressed too. So it just depends on how you navigate these things. Neither is wrong or right. It's what fits for you and your family. And that's a big problem with money. We compare, again, money's on the outside. So I keep looking on social media, or I heard from my friends, or other family members are telling me it's like this. And it's like, you don't walk in their shoes. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really know if this is going to work out. They're just telling you a story.
So that's why it's so dangerous, certainly with young people that try to look at others and how they do it and want to copy it, and then say
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite line right now is, you can be 17 years old and take AI and make $1 million, and then you'll have a business. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the business doing? Like, nobody said anything about the audience. They're just saying you'll just use AI. In what way that it's going to suddenly make it better for, everyone, and people are just going to pay you $1 million? I think that's a pipe dream. Because the people I know who have made $1 million off the internet worked really hard, lost a lot of money, and it took about 3 to 5 years. And then they finally made it, and they still are in a ton of debt. But hey, they made their money off the internet the way they wanted to. That was their value.
Absolutely. And what's emerging in this space? Like, what catches your attention as you look forwards? Because there's internet and there's apps, and there was an article in the BBC about some kid that was able to 3D print some stuff and got more sales. Like, there is this influx of financial pipe dreams. There's an app I saw on television that down the bottom it said 68% of people lose money when they do this. Like, what's catching your attention as you look forwards?
So I feel like, again, what I always look at is the money brain, but I also like to look at the results. So like, again, like if you see something that's getting promised to you that's really easy, the quick and easy money, that's often a red flag. I'm not saying it never happens, it won't happen for you. It's just there's probably going to be a price hidden somewhere in the details that you didn't know, didn't see. I'll give you a great example. There was a gentleman, I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh over this one. And he was going to do a nice big online business and he had $30,000 as seed money. I don't know where he got the money, but it was all going to be based on ads, right? Like he was going to do that kind of piece. So he set up a Facebook account, no experience running ads, by the way. And he didn't pay attention to the details. Within a week, Facebook or Meta had all his money, 30,000 in a week. It was completely gone. And here's my point about the value. He was so sure he didn't ask anybody who knows how to run an ad how to do it. Like he didn't want to pay anybody because he only had $30,000 seed money. Do you understand like the discrepancy and how it's so incoherent? It's like you have money, you could have hired a business coach, you could have hired somebody to run your ads. And here's the flip side. I've met people who pay $20,000 to have somebody run an online business for them to get it up and get it rolling. And then they were totally defrauded. And it was a recommendation.
Mm.
I say, what's helpful again is to pay attention, look for results, look for any type of testimonials, but be very much aware that people can generate a testimonial through AI.
And how do you see looking forward in the future around the world, what is going to happen if you look at money, how is things gonna go?
So this is one of the things I am very excited about. So I know we have a lot of billionaires, and now I think was it Elon Musk is I think he just got $1 trillion payment. Congratulations to him. But honestly, what I think is going to happen is if I've been hearing the expression for quite some time about wealth hoarding. Have you heard that expression, either of you? Wealth hoarding? Oh, allow me to enlighten you about wealth hoarding.
Yeah.
So wealth hoarding is a great behavioral and emotional thing of like, I need to have all the money so I can buy whatever, buy countries, buy elections, buy you know what, right? But actually, the power is with us, the people. We actually can write laws. We can actually delegate and do a lot of things. And if we don't like our representatives, we can either vote them out or get them recalled. There's all kinds of things we can do. And I think there is going to be a massive revolution across the globe about money being returned to the people since we're working for it. Like, I don't hear a problem with roads being built or, bridges being fixed. People are good with that. We want to make sure our schools are funded. I don't hear people really complaining about that. What people complain about is you hired somebody who then got a corporate or a large donor, and then all they end up doing is going for them. And it's like, well, if we actually, empowered people and said, listen, you don't like this representative, you can get them voted out, or you can lobby them and make sure that they do vote the way you want them to vote. And if they don't, they don't have to stay, because I guarantee you, if we start electing more people that we want to represent us instead of just somebody who's got a lot of money, we would have a very different type of world. But I definitely think there's going to be an absolute financial revolution, that the money will be returned to the people. And here's the thing I always want to remind people is that when you've got a lot of money, like $1 trillion, you have a massive target on your back. You do. Because it's not me who's coming after you. Oh, no, God, no. I have no interest. But there are other countries. There is a whole black market of people that will be looking at all the ways that they can literally rip you off, because money is now so electronic, it's easy to pull from one into the other. Crypto, same thing. And people are like, for $1 trillion, I'll take the risk. And so I definitely think there'll be a lot more stealing of things electronically, a lot more of that, because people are just fed up.
Interesting. There's all sorts of questions that emerge from that. Even the phrase of wealth hoarding.
Yes.
Just like the mindset around that, the fear around that, the externalization, to use your language, around that, the scarcity mindset. And again, we're back to the emotion of how we see it, and how we see it influences what we do with it. And one of the things you said at the beginning was around, maybe we do have a moment. Like you spoke about at the very beginning in your intro about unleashing blockages. And, wealth hoarding is an accumulation, and yet blockage refers to flow. What does that mean for money to flow?
So you must give and you must receive. So there are many, many, many people out there that are wealthy and they have terrible health, because that's one of the things that we don't think about. We're like, money is, again, the external thing. I know I've got the power, or I was born into privilege. I know how to manipulate and get the cash, and then therefore I have the control. That's a block. And most people will not let it go. They end up maybe having to spend all their money trying to take care of their children, because their children are very sick or they're a mess, or they end up getting married to people who rob them anyway, who take their money from them anyway. So what did you really win here? And that's what I mean. Like, it's meant to be a flow. So what we don't talk about is like, hey man, make $1 million with AI. It's going to be great. We don't talk about, do you have a quality of life, or are you stuck and glued to a screen for the next 365 days, barely with any potty breaks? Sounds like slave labor, but that's not what it's being sold as. And so that's a massive block. And so the ability to know how to have offline conversations as well as online conversations, that's not going away. But we will see probably a shift in people wanting to have more online conversations, because AI will be the nice thing. We'll soften it. And I do think that's a terrible thing. But if you don't have like a coffee chat or a face-to-face chat, oh dear. And I know it's going to happen, but there's going to be AI avatars. So you won't even be talking to Jeannie. You'll get Jeannie's AI and you get to interview that. I would never want you to do that. I'd be like, no. And if I ever walked into a coffee chat and you sent me your AI avatar, I'd be like, again, I will be following you to know not to invest in invest you, because that's crazy making. But there will be people who will do that and think it's totally fine. And it's like, nobody should have to spend that much money just to have a conversation with you if they're asking for your help.
Yeah, that's really good. I got so many questions. Now is unfortunately not the time for that. One thing before I help people be able to connect with you, I just want to kind of wrap some things up. This concept of flow feels really important. You said it before. It was such a profound question that I think it's worth us all reflecting on. If you had $1 million, like just given to you right now, what would you do with it?
Oh, me?
No, like for all of us, for our listeners, for all of us to take away. And I'm coming back to this concept of flow, because your answers pointed to, well, hey, I can hoard it. I can get myself back to neutral. But actually, this is a resource that we can all start to employ. And if we haven't had a chance to even imagine that, well, without real world reality restrictions, how can we then start to show up differently? Well, I have this resource. That guy before, I have that $30,000. How can I invest this to grow something, to have an impact? How can I use this as a tool for good? I mean, that's my key takeaway from our conversation. But for those that are inspired, that want to learn more, that want to explore this further or connect with you, how can people find you?
Globalmoneycoach.com is my money website. And then I also have my name, JeannieDougherty.com. So either way. Or LinkedIn, hello, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. For those who are like, I need to make $1 million. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Jeannie, thank you very much for sharing your insights about money and all the different energy levels and so on. So I really enjoyed it. I hope everybody else enjoyed it as well. So thank you very much for listening in, everybody. And until next time, take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.